Welcome to another episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel once a week. It chooses the horror film and they discuss it. Today we're talking about 1998's I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, which was directed by Danny Cannon. I'm your co-host, Alec.
I'm Erik, and with us again is Joe Testa. Joe, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the invite. You know, I love talking about these cinematic classics like the one we're talking about tonight, so appreciate it.
Well, we had you on about 250 episodes ago for I Know What You Did Last Summer, so, we had to have you on for part two.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a completionist, yeah.
About 2 years exactly ago, we did I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Right, because it was a summer film, yeah. It's so weird. And Erik, you mentioned Urban Legends on that one. We just covered that. We talk about Club Dread. We just covered that. So I'm glad that, I guess, years have gone by. We've done all the Screams. Really got a nice picture of the 90s, these kind of films. So let's get into this bad boy.
Well, I texted you guys the other night because I'm just really excited to talk about this because it's a big pile of hot trash. I love it, and I can appreciate looking back at it. But real quick, before we dive into this, I rented this from Amazon like 2 days ago for $3 because I couldn't find it streaming anywhere.
Yeah.
Then I swear to God, I'm just going through YouTube TV channels. Just started on MTV2. Yes, I still have cable YouTube TV. Can't recommend YouTube TV enough. But the biggest coincidence, I'm like, I just paid $3 for this and it's on TV. I haven't seen this on TV ever. Not even in the 90s. Like, this is the biggest coincidence ever. And the biggest waste of money. $3.
Yeah, how did you watch it, Joe?
I actually own this. I don't own a physical copy of this one, although I did just recently purchase a very nice 4K version of the original movie.
Oh.
I didn't splurge for this one. I bought it on sale on Vudu, digitally.
Vudu, yep.
Okay, yeah, I saw that option too. Yeah, I did Amazon like you, Erik, and goddamn, Amazon sucks. Their freaking interface is horrible.
Renting for $3 isn't, or $4 isn't horrible, right?
No, it's fine. That's fine, but it's just like when you try to rewind, it's like, you want to go 20 minutes back? It's like, no, I want to see 2 seconds ago. Like,
it goes like every 10 seconds, and it's like you can't scrub and see the thumbnails and shit.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
It's a nightmare. But anyways, this movie, was this your first time seeing it, Erik?
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like I have. I honestly can't remember, but I always knew Jack Black was in it. I always knew it took place at a resort, but I couldn't remember any of the specifics. Joe, I'm assuming you saw this day one in theaters.
You are correct, sir. Yeah, I want to say fall. I think this was a fall release in '98. Yeah, I didn't look it up. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but yeah, almost positive opening weekend.
You're right.
Yeah.
November 98. What the fuck? I Know What You Did Last Summer came out in November. It's a 4th of July movie.
It's a summer movie and a Halloween movie at best. Why is it coming out in November?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know if we got into this in our first podcast, but I think the first I Know What You Did Last Summer was October, because I remember I was at school when that came out. I was like a freshman in high school, I think. I could be wrong about that too. But yeah, this was opening weekend. I got to see it with my friends. I don't remember what kind of shenanigans we had to pull to get in because that was still an issue. I remember at some point this same year not being able to get into Urban Legend until we eventually managed a way in. But I still remember sneaking into the bathroom. We bought a ticket for another movie, went to the bathroom, and then the plan was to walk into the theater, and there was a usher waiting for me there. And anyway, I'm getting sidetracked, but that still haunts me.
Classic.
Anyway, yeah, I was a pretty big fan of that first movie, so I was definitely looking forward to this. My memory was being somewhat disappointed. I mean, by this time, the entire horror landscape had changed. I think I talked about in our first episode that so much of my love for that first movie was realizing that Scream wasn't just going to be kind of one and done. You know, it was going to start a trend, and I was going to be there for it. You know, I was going to experience it in real time. You know, it wasn't something I was going to have to read about in Fangoria. So, you know, that was what was so much fun about watching that first I Know You Did Last Summer. But by this time, there had been so many horror movies, so there wasn't really that same kind of charm. And yeah, I left this movie a little bit disappointed.
Which you also texted us the picture of your Fangoria magazine, the Bride of Chucky cover with At Pupil, Alec. You catch that? We watched that movie, the Stephen King movie At Pupil.
Of course, yeah.
And then there's a couple other movies I forgot.
Yes. So I broke out one of my old Fangorias just to check out like what was going on at this time. And I read the article on I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. It wasn't a very meaty article. There wasn't really a whole lot to it. It was kind of a puff piece. So I didn't really get any juicy behind the scenes details. But I mean, we just had our best year in horror episode, and I wouldn't make a case for 1998, but let me tell you, there were some good ones. Like just a couple, you know, there was Bride of Chucky, Blade, The Faculty came out the following month. Halloween H2O came out in August, believe it or not, talking about weird release dates.
So dumb.
The Psycho remake, Urban Legend, John Carpenter's Vampires, these were all 98. So it just goes to show you like how much things had changed from, you know, pre-Scream to a year later.
Well, how much of a young demographic was just in love with horror movies then, too?
Yeah, and I think that's the key. Like, these movies were made for young people. They were the kind of movies that, you know, people my age at the time would go to on a Friday night. Like, when I think about a lot of the pre-Scream horror movies, and there were a ton, they were like cult movies. They weren't the kind of movies teenagers were going to see. There was like, you know, even things I liked, like In the Mouth of Madness or Lord of Illusions. Like, no teenagers besides me and my friends wanted to see that.
Well, that was something I wanted to ask you, Joe, because even though you said that you were disappointed when you left the film because of the actual film, I remember you saying on the last podcast, Scream, when you went to go see it, was not a packed audience, the first one. And then, obviously, it becomes a huge success. The next year, Scream 2 comes out. This comes out, huge success. So, even though the film wasn't great, how was the theater experience for this?
My memory of it isn't that strong, believe it or not. I have pretty vivid memories of the first movie and it being packed and it playing really well. Like the audience reacting to it. And I think, yeah, I mean, maybe it's just because this movie wasn't quite as memorable. The actual theater going experience wasn't all that memorable either.
Okay, follow-up question. Do you remember the audience's reaction to Jack Black? That is insane, that character.
Oh, man. If this movie ever gets like reevaluated, I think Jack Black is canceled.
Hashtag cancel Jack Black.
Well, they have that one line in Scary Movie 1 where he's like, oh, that fat white Jamaican dude or whatever they're talking about this movie or whatever. Like, horror movies suck now. And like they mention him specifically. And it's before Jack Black was really Jack Black. So they didn't even say that. They just said that fat Jamaican white guy.
You know, it's funny. I mentioned him in our first episode. I think I said how grateful I was that there was no like obnoxious comic relief character in the first movie.
Right.
And obviously this is who I was talking about, but rewatching it now, I actually thought he was pretty funny. I mean, just because he was so ridiculous. I'll just say when he was on screen, I kind of had a smile on my face.
I did laugh out loud when he was smoking the joint in the pool and then it was just like floating away and the weed was just getting in the water. I was like, this guy doesn't give a fuck.
That thing's not wet.
He's on another planet, dude. But let's get into the movie a little bit. I'm glad we got to hear your experience with it, though, Joe. It's pretty much what I imagined it in my mind.
I thought you were going to say I was picking off eyeballs off the ground that rolled out of people's heads in the theater. I thought you were going to say something like that. But real quick, Joe, I know the answer to why you were disappointed to this movie, and then we'll get into the film. First film came out in 1997, right?
Yep.
The budget was $17 million. Pretty good budget. Made $125 million, which is 7 times the budget of the film. That's a big profit. Studios love that. It equals make a second one. First film, though, 45% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics gave it 45. The audience gave it 41. Not the greatest movie, but cult classic. Can't go wrong. Second one, this one, $24 to $65 million budget. I don't know what the hell that means. That means there's $41 million somewhere. I don't know where the money went. right? Look it up. It says 24 to 65 million.
Yeah.
And only made 40 million. So if that 24 to 65, it didn't really make its money back. It's a clear disappointment, and also probably the reason why there wasn't any theatrical releases after this. 7% critic score, 29% audience. That's terrible compared to the first film in every way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they rushed it. It was a year apart. The second one came out in 98. So literally a year later. So they just like, let's milk that cow while we still have it. Strike that iron.
Oh, yeah.
Scream did that, though, and it worked, so I don't know.
I think Scream did a better job than this.
Yeah, way better. Not even the same ballpark. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, all right, well, anyways, I guess we should dive into this film a little bit here. It's an interesting one. It starts off kind of similar to Scream 2. It's like, the surviving girl. I don't even know her name. I know the Jennifer Love Hewitt, but the actress, Julie.
Just call her Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Yeah, okay. So Jennifer Love Hewitt is at college now, just like Sydney was in Scream 2. And we kind of get this like little dream flashback thing, just like how the first one ended. So we get a dream of her in a church. She's telling the preacher or whatever that she did this shit. She wakes up, she's in school, and she's got this like little boyfriend guy, Will, who's kind of just like hanging out or whatever.
School in July, by the way. Think of
it's
that.
Summer school.
Sorry.
Summer school.
I know, but like because she's failing classes, and so is everyone else.
I mean,
is that why?
She wanted to get out of the town so bad, like that's the thing. So she like had to get out of that town. So maybe she's like, fuck it, I'll do summer school. Like, that's how bad I want to get out of this town. So her boyfriend, Freddie Prinze Jr., still working on a dock in their hometown in North Carolina, doing his thing. And basically, Brandy is her new best friend. They win this trip to the Bahamas, and that's kind of where the movie really starts. So,
does the radio call you back then? Am I like I kind of remember like if you text in to places, but texting wasn't around back then. No. Joe, did that make any sense with the radio calling you?
All right, listen. This whole plot with the radio contest and the vacation, I mean, there is no more complicated plot in slasher movie history than like the amount of slasher, homework that this guy had to do. Like, I mean, just planning a vacation for you and your significant other is a chore sometimes. Imagine plotting a vacation for 4 people and yourself. You got to arrange flights. You got to figure out accommodations, and you can't let them know you're doing it. Mm-hmm. And the way you're going to do it is by staging this radio show contest where they have to answer a question, and they end up answering it wrong. This is just mind-blowing. Like, could you imagine any other slasher like going through this amount of work just to kill somebody? Like, why doesn't he just go to her apartment and kill her?
That's what I was thinking too. I was like, why doesn't he he's on the campus with her. He already found her. Just fucking kill her.
Like, how much money did he spend just on flights?
Yeah. Exactly.
And travel agents. Imagine hiring travel agents were big in the 90s, I remember.
Oh yeah. There wasn't online booking agencies. There wasn't like Priceline back then.
Yeah, you gotta go travel agent.
Right.
And is there any good reason why, when they were writing the script, why didn't they just have Brandy win tickets legitimately, or just say, hey, we're going to the Bahamas. Julie, you're coming. Like, why does the fisherman have to be pulling the strings? He could just follow them there.
Right.
Bro, they should have just did a study abroad thing in the Bahamas.
Anything like
that.
I mean,
so much simpler than winning a contest through the radio where the guy. That's like the big reveal at the end too, which is we'll get to it, but
right.
Fucking stupid.
Like, could you imagine when the killer and his partner, spoiler alert, are figuring all this shit out? Like, this is really insane.
It's so crazy. There's actually one thing that I think is even crazier, and it's at the end, and we can get to that, but I actually think this is convoluted, but the backstory of the fisherman gets even way more convoluted at the end, so we'll get into that.
So they win the contest, and then she's like, you can invite someone. So she calls Freddie Prinze on the dock, and he's like, I don't want to go, right?
Because she said she didn't want to come back to Southport or whatever for 4th of July. And he's like, so you'll go with your friends, but you won't go with me? It's like, dude, she just offered you a free trip. Just go with her.
And then his friend goes, don't tell her you're going now. Let's go over there and surprise her. Meanwhile, he's like, well, what if she invites someone else?
Yeah.
Like, that's like what is like she's immediately going to invite someone else. That's what would go through my head. But I also wanted an extra scene where like Freddie Prinze goes to like the owner of the boatyard and like, hey, I got to take off work for a week. I'm going to the Bahamas, and just like, you're telling me this now? Like, I want to see that. Like, this guy, like, yeah, you fucking aren't doing that, bro. Like,
4th of July weekend, we need you here.
Yeah, we got you on the boat docks, brother.
Really quick, Eric, did you recognize who his friend, who's also like 45 years old?
I remember him from Hardball and Perfect Storm, right?
He's Kenny Powers' brother in Eastbound and Down. He's Dustin.
Oh my God, that's the other thing.
Yeah,
with him in the above ground pool.
Yeah,
and like, oh God, it's like, oh my God, his son's Shrek or whatever. Oh God, great show. Everyone watch the first season of Eastbound and Down. Amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's him. But yeah, that guy's like 45 years old. He's like twice Freddie Prinze's age, and he's like, you want to like go get a beer and hang out and sing and stuff in the car? So they start driving together, and then, Jesus Christ, we get this setup where it makes it seem like the same thing happened from the first movie. There's like a guy in the middle of the road. So Freddie Prinze and his friend, you know, they're driving, and they see this, and he gets out, and it's a dummy. And then the guy, Kenny Powers' brother or whatever, gets stabbed through the back of his bottom of his jaw, ripped out through the car, and then the hook guy drives at Freddie Prinze Jr., which again, Freddie Prinze Jr. falls off the highway or whatever, just falls down a hill. Why wouldn't the fucking killer make sure he's dead? He's like, oh, okay, I guess we're good. And then he just leaves.
Also, he ends up in the hospital with like IVs and like a breathing tube, it looks like. It's like, he just rolled down a hill. It really wasn't that bad. Was it that bad? He didn't hit any rocks on the way down.
I think he broke his shoulder or his arm, I think, because he was
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Alec. Okay. Thank you for justifying this film.
I'm just saying that it's ridiculous that the killer would be like, oh, we drove him off the road. He's fine. This could potentially ruin the whole plan, but we're good.
Yeah, totally. And meanwhile, Freddie Prinze is in the hospital. Cutscene, he breaks out of the hospital, meaning he needs to get to the Bahamas because he knows that the killer's still out there. And like,
I feel like Freddie Prinze spends the remainder of this movie in like a different movie. Yeah. Like he's almost in like a film noir. Like he gets himself a gun and he's going to pawn shops. Like I love the line where he like steals the boat. He's like, I'm not looking for a weather report. I'm looking for a boat. And he points the gun at the guy. Like, I just want these scenes to be in like black and white. And it's like, it's a whole different movie. Even when he leaves the hospital, he jumps out the window for dramatic effect. I think they would have just let him go. I don't think he's a prisoner.
No, exactly. He literally could have just been like, I'm leaving. It's like, well, you're an adult. So
he's like, no, I'm taking the window.
You just have to sign this form first and go.
Yeah,
like, that's all it is.
It's like a scene out of Darkman.
How much screen time does he have in this movie? He's in this for like maybe 8 minutes, right?
Probably like 20 in total.
No, dude. He's way less than 20 minutes in this movie.
I'll say 15.
Okay. Yeah, bridge the gap. I did see a YouTube guy who's like, this must have sucked for him to film because he was alone the whole movie. It's like he wasn't with the rest of the cast. He was always by himself. So it's like, yeah, that does kind of suck for him. So eventually we get to the resort, so Freddie Prinze Jr.'s like, I guess I got to get down there now. And we get to this resort, which is almost, Eric, shot for shot, the same thing as Club Dread, the opening.
You know what? Like I said, I never saw this before, and I'm laughing my ass off because, Club Dread is this is the movie it's based off of. Yeah. You got, Farva with the dreadlocks, and love it. Freaking love it. Yeah. And we don't have to get into Club Dread too much, but clearly derived from this movie 100%.
Main influence, yeah. So there's a lot of little subtle things, but especially right when they get off the boat and they're walking, I'm like, this is exactly like the Club Dread opening. But yeah, we meet a couple characters. We do meet Jack Black. We meet the boat captain. Also, guys, I'm sorry. So they leave for Miami and they get to the Bahamas or whatever. It's a 2.5-hour boat ride on this little rinky-dink thing. And he's like, this is the only boat to and from the island. I'm like, this is Martha's Vineyard has a better boat to get from Cape Cod to there. I was like, this is crazy. This is just like, just some guy.
There's also a one-wave radio or whatever that gets broken, right?
The one-way radio, yeah.
One-way radio that gets broken. And it's like, that's our only communication. It's like, really? Do you think that's safe when a storm's coming, that one radio is the only communication?
Yeah.
But they arrive at this place. There's no other tourists there because it's the rainy season. It's their winter. So they go to bars by themselves. There's no one else there. They go to karaoke night, remember?
Could we talk about that for a second?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. We can talk about the karaoke night.
Okay, because you guys probably don't remember, but Jennifer Love Hewitt was trying to be a pop star at this time. And her single is in this movie.
Yes.
You could hear it briefly in the scene where she's on the phone with Freddie Prinze, and he's telling her he doesn't want to go to the Bahamas. But I was just laughing my ass off at that karaoke scene because she probably insisted on this scene. Like Jennifer Love probably said, I want a scene in the movie where I sing. But God. in the movie, she's playing it like, no, I don't want to go. It reminded me so much of the scene in Anchorman where Ron Burgundy, is being forced to go onto the jazz stage. And he's like, no, I'm unprepared. And he pulls the flute out of his sleeve.
Right. God. And then the bartender's like, everyone's a singer, I guess. Like, oh, that's so gross. Yeah.
It's even funnier because Brandy is clearly the singer of this group. Like, everybody knows, okay, Brandy's like, the pop star of this. And Jennifer Love Hewitt's like, I got to get my 2 cents in there.
Yeah, that's funny. Brandy didn't really sing, did she?
I don't think so. And
yeah, Jennifer Love was probably like, no, you're not. This is my moment.
Oh my God, I never put that together. But also, you're going to tell me that the fucking people reprogrammed the karaoke machine?
Listen, I need a version.
Joe, stop, Joe. If you can plan a vacation like this, Alec, and get the honeymoon suite, you can fix the karaoke machine.
When did they do that?
And how they know the song she was going to choose?
Exactly.
I don't know. Sorry, Joe. Go.
No. I just need a version of this movie where I see the fisherman planning all this, just step by step. Like this must have just been the most stressful. Like he could have just killed her and then just gone on vacation. He could have killed her at her apartment and then he could have just gone on vacation. Instead, he's, rigging karaoke machines.
Yeah, it's there's so many little things that you're like, there's a plot hole, and I'm assuming the screenwriter's like, I don't care, shut up, like just ignoring huge things. Another weird thing, right when they get to the hotel, first of all, even before that, love Jeffrey Combs in this. I thought he did a great job. You've seen Reanimator, right, Joe?
I have. When I first saw this movie, I wouldn't have known who he was. I was late to the party on Reanimator, but now I've seen him in a ton of things.
Yeah, no, me too. But I loved him in this. I thought he did a really good job. But before we even meet him, they get to the hotel and there's no one there. They're like, this sucks or whatever. The cleaning lady just ignores them. And you're kind of like, was there a reason for that? And they never explain it. Remember, like, when they're like, excuse me, miss, and she just has her back turned and she just keeps going. It's like, she speaks English and she's like a maid. So I was like, why is she ignoring them?
Yeah, they're trying to set up like that this place is kind of haunted,
Yeah, what was the thing about the room? Like, oh, you got room 201 and 202? Uh-oh. It's like, they never really explained that, did they?
Yeah, because that's where Ben kills his wife or whatever, I guess, right?
I've seen this movie several times and that information has already left my brain. That sounds right. It's something like that.
Yeah, I thought they were like, oh, we haven't had guests here in a while because he killed them. I don't know.
He killed his wife in one of those rooms on their honeymoon or something.
There we go. So that's why they do it here. Okay, we have our answer why we're fucking in the Bahamas right now. Got it.
I mean, I guess, like, why does he need Julie to be there? Like,
right.
I guess it's something, at least there is some reason for him to go through all this trouble. Like, it would make more sense if like this was the scene of the crime or something and he wanted to bring her back here. But I guess it was the scene of a crime, just not one that Julie had anything to do with. But whatever. Like, in fairness to this movie, a lot of the shit we're talking about is kind of funny to think about. It doesn't really work against the movie for me. Like, if anything, it kind of works for the movie. Like, it just kind of is it's silly, but it's silly.
You just got to let go of your expectations. Where are we? So maid dies, boat guy dies. There's a voodoo guy at one point, which is like, what the hell is going on? I was saying, like, there's one point in the movie where I'm like, wow, she's like really clothed in this movie, Jennifer Love Hewitt. And I'm like, last movie, they were like cleavage shots on cleavage shots. And then I felt like, oh, maybe now that she's a bigger actress by this time, like maybe she's like, I don't want to do that. There's a scene with her in the gym where she's like in a sweatshirt. And then it cuts to the tanning booth scene. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. Well, that was the scene. I was like, now that makes sense. And then the tanning booth scene happens. And it's like, just unplug the machine.
Yeah, there you go, Eric. I was going to say that exactly. I was like, why didn't they just shut it off? You see the guy turn it on, just turn it off.
There's buttons on the outside, but also just unplug it.
they're all like idiots. They're like, we can't get it open. And he's like, here, use this. And they're like smashing it. There's glass. It's like, oh my God, just turn it off.
Also, throwback nostalgia, the headphones she had in the tanning booth that go like around your head that are really thin. Love those headphones. Bring them back, but make them stronger so they don't snap in your backpack. Would love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, that's an MP3 player thing. I was like, shit.
Also, there's another scene with Brandy with her boyfriend, Tyrell, on the bed where she's jumping up and down and stuff. I was like, oh, that's the scene from Scary Movie 2 where she's like, I want to shit on these walls.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's where that's from. But justice for Tyrell. The guy deserved some action. Didn't get anything.
I was just going to say, you know, I like Mekhi Phifer as an actor, but I think he's written to be and maybe directed to be pretty obnoxious in this movie. I mean, I feel for him, don't get me wrong. I mean, poor guy just wants to get laid. Like, that's kind of a horror cliche. There's usually a nerdy character that, you know, wants to get laid and keeps failing, but he's like really angry about it. Like he's borderline hostile. And you know, by the time he gets killed, I'm like ready for him to go.
Every line is just like, you're fucking this up for me, Julie. Like, come on, help me out, like sort of thing. Yeah.
Like, and even when Julie is, you know, becomes kind of hysterical because she finds a body in her closet that magically disappears again. Yep. He like has absolutely no sympathy. Like, doesn't he know like her two best friends were brutally murdered just like 12 months ago and she was almost killed? Like, he doesn't seem to have, if he has any knowledge of it, he's totally unsympathetic.
Okay, I want to ask you guys one question, but about this guy. Basically, when the two guys go off through the rain by themselves, and Will is basically like, yeah, man, like, what if he's harvesting bodies underneath the camp or whatever? And he's just like, just shut up, man. Just shut up. And they keep going. And that's exactly what happens. So I was like, all right, this guy really is not paying attention. He's just so horny. He doesn't care about anything. But when did you guys know it was Will?
When he showed up at the... he shows up and he's like, come on, let's get out of here. And I'm like, yeah. And they mentioned the son thing. I'm like, yep. I did think the bartender was going to be the daughter, though, because didn't they say there was two kids?
Yep. Well, his daughter died in the first one. That's what prompted the whole killing spree. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I caught on in the theater when I saw this. You know, looking back, it's like, how could I have not? I feel like they drop so many hints. Like when the guy's carrying his bags into the room, he's like, I've been doing this since before you were a glimmer in your father's eye. And it's like, well, why? Like, you don't write that line if it has no significance, you know? So, yeah, I guess it probably came as a bit of a surprise. You know, he immediately starts acting like a killer from the Scream movies. Like, whenever these killers are unveiled, they immediately start having to ham it up like Matthew Lillard, which I always find funny.
Yeah. It's not my blood. It's not my blood.
Hey, what if they're like banging on the door to get out, and then Will shows up, he opens the door with like a 2x4 that's bloody, and he's like, come on, let's get out of here. And it's like, oh, this guy's the fucking killer. 100%. Right there, Alec, is when I knew. When did you know, Alec?
You ready for this? I feel like you right now, Erik. I knew when what's-her-face was like, just think happy thoughts from your childhood. He's like, what if you didn't have a happy childhood?
Yep.
Right when he said that, I was like...
When was that?
That was like on the plane, dude. I was like, what the fuck does that mean?
Exactly.
But the thing is, I was really paying attention because I'm like, it's 100% him, 100%. But there were times where there was a person getting killed off screen when he was with them. So I was like, okay, maybe I don't know what's going on. And then finally, yeah, it's two killers. So you're like, okay.
I think, you know, when I saw it in theaters, I just didn't think it was a whodunit. You know, I just assumed it was The Fisherman. You know, that was already established. I didn't think it was going to be like a Scream movie. But they're smart to do that. Like, you know, even in the first movie, when you find out that it's just Ben the Fisherman, there's something kind of anticlimactic about that, because so much of that movie is them like pointing fingers at each other and like investigating. And then you find out, oh no, it's the guy they ran over. It's, you know, it's just that one guy. So they were right in thinking that this movie did need something else. It needed a twist. How good of a twist it is, that's debatable.
All right. Other question for you. When did you know that this was a hot trash movie? I know my answer, and I'll say it first. When Jennifer Love Hewitt picks up like the picture on her nightstand, and it's like Sarah Michelle Gellar in the like prom dress or whatever.
Yeah.
Or, like, and it's like not the picture you want, like the night she died as the picture, and it's just so bad. And she's like kind of like puts her fingers on the picture and stuff, and like wipes. I'm like, oh god, this is terrible.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's an exact moment I could point to, but I gotta say, I feel like, and I'm on record, I'm a big Jennifer Love Hewitt fan. She was kind of like
We know.
a crush of mine, and I think she looks fantastic in this movie. But I think she might be one of the worst final girls in horror history. I don't know if that's a hot take, but like when you look back at that first movie especially, she is useless in the final act of that movie.
Yeah.
Like even the Friday the 13th movies, which a lot of people consider kind of misogynistic, even those movies always give their final girl like a moment to kind of fight and get even with the killer. Like they try and do that in this movie. She picks up the gun and is like, just fucking die. And I was like laughing. Like there's just something so, she just isn't that person. Like Neve Campbell, like she can do that in her sleep. Like I totally buy Neve Campbell being tortured and tough when she has to be. Just poor Jennifer Love, she just isn't that person, and that's okay.
Is she in any other horror movies?
I don't think so.
So she's like not a scream queen. She's just these movies, and that's it.
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Interesting. Neve Campbell's in a bunch of horror movies,
And I said in the first movie, I think that Sarah Michelle Gellar should have had this part. She should have been Julie. Like I much more buy her as someone who could, she was an action hero. She was Buffy. Yeah. So when she needs to have her moment at the end, it's much more believable, I would think.
Yeah, but she was bigger than this movie, unfortunately. She was Scooby-Doo at this time, right?
That was like 4 years later.
Well, Freddie Prinze was in that too. What am I talking about? I am contradicting myself in the moment.
She was probably really busy with Buffy because like she was just taking small roles, I feel like, at the time. She had a small role in Scream 2, a supporting role in I Know What You Did Last Summer. I think she was just really busy with Buffy.
Well, let's get to the ending, and then we'll wrap it up here. But there's a couple things I just need to bring up that are just insane. But the ending is pretty crazy. It's just a lot of running around. We find out that the voodoo guy was trying to protect them from this curse, I guess, because he knew that Ben was doing this. I don't know what the fuck is going on anymore.
Stole a toothbrush, a hair tie.
Just stupid stuff. So they end up having a huge fight, and we find out the killer's Will. It's Ben's son. Will Ben's son. Just so stupid. I was like, oh my god. So they have a huge fight. The fisherman's there. They've killed everybody. Brandy, they just like forget about. They're like, oh yeah, I guess she fell through glass, so she's fine. She's dead, I guess, but she wasn't. So they bring her. First of all, they were going to kill her in the tanning bed, but they're like, oh, I guess we'll know she's not going to die there. Then they make a big production of it at the end for at the graveyard. So they bring her to the graveyard. You're like, well, weren't you trying to kill her before? But whatever. So they bring her to the graveyard. And that's where we get the hook hand guy, Ben, his son, Will, and they're literally like, okay, let's kill her now. And then Freddie Prinze Jr. comes out of nowhere with a gun that he bought at a pawn shop. And I just got to say, this climax started at a certain point, okay? Freddie Prinze Jr. is on his way. I did Google Maps. 16 hours it would take on a bus from North Carolina to Florida with no traffic, no stops or whatever. That's a straight shot, 16 hours. Then he has to get the boat, which I know he works as a fisherman or whatever. He's a boat guy. But you're going to tell me he's going to drive through a storm in a boat he doesn't know. He doesn't know where he's going. It's the middle of the night during a storm, and he perfectly gets to the dock and then perfectly gets to the graveyard where there's nobody on the island. And then he gets the gun and gets there, and then the gun backfires.
It backfires for him in the rain because obviously it's waterlogged, and then Jennifer Love Hewitt picks it up and it works.
And then it shoots 8 bullets, even though it's a 6-shooter, so it's a magic gun.
I mean, maybe that's a play on Halloween 2, because Halloween 2 is notorious for being 7 shots on Michael.
Oh, that's funny. Good call.
Jesus Christ. It was crazy! The ending was crazy!
Like, the director's like, just shoot her 9 times. Just do it. Let's do it in the edit room and see if anyone cares.
It was insane. Did that bother you guys, though? That Freddie Prinze Jr. took a bus and all that shit?
I gave up in the first act, bro. Like, I didn't care at this point. I'm just in it for the ride. Like, once the radio happened, like, the radio calls you?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this is not a good movie by any stretch. But while watching it, when these things do occur to me, they just kind of make me laugh. They don't really frustrate me, if that makes sense.
That's a better way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, so much of this movie for me is just kind of a time capsule. It reminds me of a certain time, seeing this with my friends, remembering this kind of horror renaissance. And that's what gets me through it. Yeah. I mean, because there's so much here to get hung up on.
Yeah.
So it's a little guilty pleasure for you to this movie.
Totally.
Gotta tip my cap to it.
Okay, so Brandy and Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt escape. They get home. Also, Freddie Prinze Jr. is 22 and Jennifer Love Hewitt is 19 in this movie. How'd they get that house?
It was like a flash forward to the next summer.
I don't know. They got this amazing house.
I mean, it's the 90s. The market was way better back then. Who knows?
A 19-year-old Erik and a 22-year-old who works on a dock?
No shot. And he did afford an engagement ring, though, so...
It was $300 or whatever.
Yeah, they can't buy that house. Unless it's witness protection. That's the only other reason.
Yeah, we got Freddie Prinze Jr. giving a blowjob to an electric toothbrush while...
No, he is really going to town on that toothbrush.
I fucking love this thing. And then it's just another, I'm assuming, dream, but Ben is somehow alive and he grabs her from under the bed. And that's how it ends.
Yeah, they try and do this jump scare thing again. And, this might be, a false memory. Who knows if I'm remembering things accurately. But, I remember that final moment in the first movie really working for the audience. Kind of that last jump scare kind of sent everyone out of the theater kind of on a high. And I remember in this movie, it was kind of just an eye roll,
Yeah.
And it was just like, well, what are we going to do this again?
Yeah. Well, there is a third one. Joe, have you seen that one since we recorded last?
I have avoided it for 20-something years, and I would appreciate to continue to avoid it. So if you guys plan on covering that, I don't know.
I did see in February of this year, they announced they are potentially doing a legacy sequel with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Jennifer Love Hewitt. So maybe we'll get a direct sequel to this one.
You know what I would have done for a sequel instead of I Still Know What You Did Last Summer?
What?
Flip it up. Don't do winter. Don't do fall. I Know What You Did Last fall. But imagine you did something like I Know What You Did Last Spring Break. Spring Break was really big in the 90s and whatnot. So I think that would have been a good draw.
They probably wanted to do something like that, but they're like, it'd be so much cheaper if it was a vacation where there's no extras and there's no party.
The extras, yeah.
Yeah, that's probably what they were thinking. They're like, what if we do a resort, but it's off season, so no one's there?
You know what? That could have been the pitch, and then someone dumbed it down and simplified it. That makes a lot. That's what I would have done off of I Know What You Did Last Summer, I Know What You Did Last Spring Break, because these are high school students going into college, and what do college kids do? They go to spring break, and then they go to Miami, and it's a mess, and there's killers. I don't know. That's my take.
Yeah. Anyways, trash movie, kind of. I don't know. Not a good sequel to the first one.
Hot trash. Hot trash. Hot trash.
Last minute thoughts for a wrap up?
Yeah, I think, I don't really believe in guilty pleasures, but this one might qualify. Still not nearly one of my favorites from this era, but not painful either.
All right, I got one last thought too. Joe, what's your go-to karaoke song if you go to a karaoke bar? If you were forced to go to a karaoke bar and sing a song, what would you sing?
I would be like Jennifer Love in this movie, just like no, I won't do it, and then just bust out some Jim Morrison.
Ooh, what song?
Oh man,
5 to 1.
I would do the end. I would do the end. And just
9 minutes of the end.
Yeah, put everyone into this trance.
You have to do the helicopter noises too, all
bar just clears out because everyone's depressed. Joe, that's not a great song. Just Alec, what's your song?
I feel like since I don't drink, doing karaoke is weird.
What would you do at karaoke? If you were gun to your head, dude, what would you do?
Oh, gun to my head. Okay. Boys of Summer.
Boys of Summer. Okay.
I don't fucking know. They're gun to my head. I'm not thinking.
Love it. All right. Well, let's end on that. Let me spin the wheel.
Yes.
Spinning. Identity.
I don't know anything about this movie. I've literally never heard of it. So.
Nothing. I haven't heard of it.
I'm excited. We have a great guest, though. Joe, have you heard of this one?
I saw it in theaters.
Hey! All right. Well, I'm excited. We do have Montgomery Morrow. He's going to be joining us. He's been on a couple times, so excited to have him back. But Joe, as always, thank you so much for being here and filling us in on your experience.
Thanks, guys. This was a fun one. I know, sometimes the bad ones are even more fun.
Totally agree.
I can't agree more.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way. I'm like, they're easier to talk about because they're just like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So
the tanning bed doesn't make any sense. No, we go off.
Well, thank you everybody too for listening in, and if you haven't had a chance, you can check out last week's episode, which was Friday the 13th, the 2009 remake, and we'll see you all next week with Identity.